Hey guys, it is Dean. Welcome to the Better Man Podcast. Today's episode is an interview with Dr. Kelly Starrett. He is a legend in the mobility world. He was one of the original mobility experts. He is a 3 times New York Times bestseller and Sunday Times bestseller. He has the brand The Ready State, formerly Mobility WOD. And he is one of the best guys that we can talk with about mobility, period. Today's topic, we're going to be exploring how to stay active as you age. So how to stay active and get to decide what you do with your body as you get older, the biggest gaps of most training programs, why you need to be training at higher speeds, not just slow movements, getting in the basics of nutrition, sleep, and other lifestyle essentials so that your workouts give you more bang for your buck, and why you should have a vision and a purpose for your fitness. This was an incredible episode. Dr. Kelly Starrett is an expert. He is a legend. Guys, listen to him, implement what you can, get inspired, and enjoy this episode. I hope it inspires you to be a better man. Hey guys, it's Dean. Welcome to the Better Man Podcast. I have the man, the myth, the legend, Dr. Kelly Starrett, back to talk about aging and fitness, because that's just a great topic. And we're going to do that. So Kelly, thanks for being here.
Always a pleasure to discuss all things nerd with you, all things health with you, family with you. I even brought my my Cal water polo jersey out, my homemade piece of flair, my piece of cheer. I thought I'd flashed it today.
Yeah, so make sure that you watch the video version on YouTube and also in the members area, so you can see so you can see this. So we talked about this before we started the recording, but I think a really cool topic to hear, because we just have, most of the guys in our community are guys who they're in their 40s, they're in their 50s, their 60s, their early 70s. A lot of them haven't worked out for a long time, and they're coming back into this now, and they're trying their workouts again the same way they would have when they were consistent, maybe 10, 20 years ago. And things are different. Things are harder. There's different considerations. They can't go as hard. They have to, pay more attention to flexibility, to recovery. And, I think it's one thing to talk about the general experiences as a whole, but people also love to hear about individual experiences, and what better person to hear it from than the supple leopard himself. So I don't know where this conversation begins, but maybe if you can remember differences in how you approach fitness as you were in your 30s and then moving into your 40s. Let's start with that era.
I love this conversation. It's something Juliet and I talk about a lot. I'm 52, almost 52. Juliet's 52. I want to set the framework for everyone that I have always had a body that could go really hard pretty instantaneously. Didn't need a lot of warm up. I paddled on the USQ and kayak team. I was a professional athlete. I paddled on a national whitewater team. You can literally, there's a time in my 20s, you cut my hand off and it would grow back the next day and we'd go again. We could be out till 4 a.m. after a World Cup, final, and then be up for hard, courses at 7:30 in the morning the next day after sleeping in a parking lot. So I remember this ability to swallow down, manage chaos, and just go and go and go. I will tell you that I've never been able to handle the volume that my friends could handle. So that's one thing I started to notice early in my career, that I had to just be mindful and start to take care of myself a little bit differently than my friends. Because if we went super hard in the paint, they could get an extra day in and I could not, and be as fresh and popping. So starting to be aware. And again, my 20s, it was pretty fun. There was a time in my life where, and I paddled 2-man racing canoe. So it was a whitewater canoe. You see the gates hanging over the Olympics. And there was a time where there was 2 men in a canoe together. And I used to mock my best friend and bowman because he had to stretch and mobilize. We're going to call it stretching because it was the 90s. He had to stretch to get in the boat so he didn't cramp and he could just fit in the boat. And I would just mercilessly heckle him because I was like pre-stretched. In fact, in high school, I would say, Coach, I'm pre-stretched. Like, what are you talking about? I don't need to warm up. Like, let's go. And we started to notice, and again, think 90s, that we should warm up before we did intense training sessions. And I'll tell you, that seems obvious now, but at the time it really wasn't obvious. And so we started spending a lot more time, running around the parking lot. We started spending a lot of time doing some arm circles. Our paddle up, we would paddle and try to paddle to the top of the course and the bottom of the course, which would take about 20 minutes. So by the time we got to the top of the course where we were going to start working out, if workout started at 4:30, we were in the boat at 4 and had a half hour of entrainment, of feeling, of touch, of getting hot, and we were sweating, ready to go 4:30. So that started to happen towards the end of my career. Now, fast forward to the 50s, and here's what I've noticed. Remember, Juliet and I owned the 21st CrossFit in the world. We owned a gym an open gym for 17 years, where we coached every age, every Olympian, every national team, every professional team came in. And at the end now, where I can see where the biggest changes are, is that I cannot skimp on the margins. And I think one of the things that we see a lot, as Julia and I have a strength conditioning lifestyle program for people in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, is people want to, hey, I need to get back in shape. So you go back to where you were maybe your most successful in shape, and you adopt that program because that worked for you. And we actually see the same thing in Olympic track and fields. We see it the same thing in other Olympic sports, is that when people stop having success doing what's working, they'll default to a time with drills and things where they were having success. And that's a fallacy, because it's a completely different body, completely different context in which you find your body. So if you're suddenly in your 40s and 50s, late 30s even, you might have a job, you might have a household that you're taking care of, right? You certainly have a patina of injury, trauma potentially, right? You just booted out skiing, you crashed on your mountain bike, whatever. And you have a tissue system that maybe you've been neglecting. And so what we're seeing is that people default back, and immediately any sort of hot spot flares its head, any extension sensitivity. And, Juliet and I have been, programming mobility and talking about recovery and positional restoration and tissue health, from when we started this thing. Really, we started teaching a course in 2009. In 2010, we get a book deal. In 2013, Becoming a Supple Leopard comes out. So we've been doing this for a hot minute in terms of helping people feel better in their bodies so they can express normative range of motion. And what we found was that a lot of people did not have, and I'll talk about range of motion first, did not have access to their native ranges. They maybe never had access because didn't have to kind of play soccer. Then they got stiff and adapted to their usually intellectual lifestyle. We get a desk job. We're not moving as much. We're certainly not playing spike ball and pickleball. We're not cutting. We're not, enjoying trying new sports. And suddenly what you see is, wow, there's a real case for something like a physical practice that exposes you to just these native positions. Enter Manfo yoga, right? Where you're saying, hey, yoga doesn't need to be your entire identity, but let's make sure that in a really systematic way, we're touching these positions so that your brain says it's safe to be here, and your tissues have had some exposure and isometric control there, and also helpful to be able to twist and flex and rotate. And so what we see is that typically the average person, if they don't engage in a very formal strength conditioning program, they get on the Peloton, they do some bicep curls. That's not a strength conditioning program. They're not doing something that looks like Pilates or Manflo yoga. What ends up happening is that they're usually using, if they're all the movements that you could express with your body is a vocabulary. Most people are using about 3 words. I sit, I stand, I walk around, I lay down, I sit, I stand, I walk around. Maybe I bring my hands to my face. That's it. I have to reach across and grab the seatbelt. We used to turn to have to look over our shoulders. Now we have a backup camera. So even that's going away.
That's true.
Right. So suddenly what's happening is our movement sort of demands have gotten really truncated, and we're really just leaning into 3 or 4 words. So now when I go into strength conditioning, and let me define that for you, modern strength conditioning is very thorough. It's saying here are the bookend, the key shapes that every human being needs to be in. And if you jump into any collegiate strength training program, you go back to those days, you're going to see that strict press, strict bench, back squat, front squat, deadlift, lunge, pull up, right, push up, row, those things touch all the shapes that human beings need to be in, snatch. And so what we end up seeing is that our modern strength and conditioning practices, which are very good and thorough, really do ask us to have access to our native ranges. The problem is you gave up on touching those things back in Vietnam because it didn't matter and your body didn't hurt. So nothing hurt. So now you're jumping into a program that's asking you to have good tissue health, to be fed, to be slept so you can adapt, to be able to access those positions. And so suddenly you got hot spots show up, shoulder starts to ache, back hurts, knees hurt, and you're like, I don't know what's going on. Meanwhile, you're smashing yourself because we know that works and has always worked for you. And then you sit all day long. So we start to see this accumulation of adaptation errors. You're not sleeping for 8 hours. You don't eat enough fruits and vegetables. You don't get enough micronutrients and fiber. You're definitely not eating enough protein, right? You don't walk during the day and just decongest your body. Plus, you're basically going back to your bro slits because that got you jacked in college. And now things are hurting. And now you don't even know what to do. So that's sort of a template of what we're seeing. And where my body has changed is that I don't mess around with sleep. I have to sleep if I'm going to recover. My ability to manage these higher intensities is gone down even more, right? I have to warm up more. There's a lot more zone 2, zone 3 conditioning in my programming. My nutrition has to be on point. I don't really try not to drink alcohol. I think that every once in a while there's an amazing margarita in my life, but honestly, that's a celebration because it messes up my sleep so much, right? And if I'm going to spend any calories on alcohol, I'd rather spend that on ice cream, right? So I think in those terms a little bit.
I almost forgot how much you like ice cream.
I like ice cream. And, fortunately, I just, had Juliet and I went in for our DEXA scan. It'd been 10 years since I had a DEXA scan. And so when I was 41, I had a DEXA scan. 51, my bone density is exactly the same. My lean muscle mass is exactly the same. But, my fat is exactly this. I'm exactly the same person I was when I was 41, which I think is a testament, right, to that I'm doing okay. But what I tell you is that I've had to become a lot more rigid in terms of non-negotiables as I've gotten older. And then as we get into this conversation, we can talk a little bit more about the things I think would really serve you if you want to get into some strength and conditioning.
Cool. Yeah, I'm glad you brought up all those things because those are all the things that it seems like guys, they struggle with when they're getting older. They, especially the guys who are used to really intense workouts. Like we have a lot of guys in our community who are used to doing weights all the time. And if it's not an intense workout where they're, dripping sweat and panting, they're like, this is a dumb workout. I don't need to do it. And so that's one of the things that I try to share with people is like, yeah, dude, you need to just go on some walks. You need to go on some walks. You need to do some lighter yoga sessions. It doesn't have to be like a super intense power yoga session. The warm-ups, like that's absolutely a non-negotiable. I mean, and even for me, I'm 35. I'm 35. And like, for me, the warm-ups are like, it's a non-negotiable. Number one, because like, I know I'm going to hurt so much the next day, but also because you're just going to have so much of a better workout. Like you're going to have like, to use your language, you're going to, well, not to use your language, but I'm going to paraphrase it, but getting into those deeper range of motions and being able to build some familiarity there. So kind of reestablishing these necessary levels of range of motion that you need to be able to do these basic exercises that we've been doing for years, the front squat, the back squat, an overhead press, all of these things. So, I think that's all, those are all awesome tips. I appreciate you.
Let's expand the definition of training. So, oftentimes I think we tend to adapt or adopt is this idea that training has to happen in 1 hour increments, right? Or longer. And if I can't do that, it's out, right? And training is the thing. And let's call it entertainment. Let's call it like hobby. I love training. My wife loves training. We are into training. We have no problem. But we did forget that the original point of training was not to win the ab competition on Instagram, right? That you don't win fitness. That's not how it works. And I think we used to like, look, I shredded down for my wedding, boom, boom. And then like, now I'm Jabba the Hutt again, but I won, right? I'm a world champion of my own body 13 years ago. So what are we training for? That's the number one. I can tell you that in my 50s, I am training to have a body that's built for adventure, right? And simultaneously, I want to be less gross for my wife. Those are the two things that are like big drivers. Like, I don't want my wife to leave me because I get gross. And she, has, lats and abs, and she's the 3-time world champion. So I'm always trying to keep up with her. But built for adventure means that I'm also looking at tissue health. And if my knees hurt, or I rupture my Achilles, or my back hurts, and I can't ride my bike, I can't paddle, I can't ski, I can't hike, I can't do the things. I did a 4-day gnarly helicopter ski trip this year. Very fortunate, lifetime, bucket list. But man, it was like 20,000+ feet of vert every day, post holing. It was gnarly. And I was the oldest guy on the trip. So what I'm trying to do is get my body always in a state where I can be like, yeah, let's go throw the ball. Let's go play. Let's, sure, I'll jump in. Yeah, we're going to do this crazy adventure. I want to prepare. And that notion that we were training has gotten lost in the last 2 decades. So let me describe something that I think will help. First wave fitness is late 90s, early 2000s. And it's malt nut power bars, probably before your time, right? Early heart rate monitors. And maybe you came into a strength and conditioning program that was out of college, very sophisticated, or you're a track and field athlete, you're exposed to Olympic lifting. But no one overhead squatted in the late 90s. That didn't exist. No one Olympic lifter snatched in the late 90s or 2000s. That didn't exist. You couldn't buy a kettlebell in San Francisco in 2005. Just so we're clear. You could not buy a kettlebell in the city of San Francisco in 2005. We had to drive down to Santa Cruz to buy kettlebells. Kettlebell training did not exist unless you discovered this Pavel book that was weird and you got it on the internet. Amazon doesn't exist. So the world is very dark and not very sophisticated. Then all of a sudden we hit this ramp where YouTube is kicking off. We're starting to see blogs. People are talking about fitness, CrossFit. All of these things are striking. And now you can literally listen to Peter Attia for 3 hours, right? You got the Hubes. You're laying in a red bed. You're wondering which mitochondrial supplement is right for you. You're in the barefoot shoes. You're trying to follow your, blast your abs. And what we see is that just peak fitness has happened. And it hasn't necessarily made us healthier, except now we have access to all of the information. And it's easy for me to follow you and be like, okay, this is working. Like, I can follow some experts in the field. Now, Juliet and I are describing this as we're into third wave. And third wave is really about integration. It's about iteration and really making sure that what's essential is essential and that we're not majoring in the minors. So if you're cold plunging and you're sauning and you're in your red bed and you're biohacking, but you're not doing those essentials, you're not walking, your cardiorespiratory system sucks. When we take a scan of your body, we look at your blood, we look at your DEXA, the truth is in the details. And you basically have this report card you can get anytime you want, right? That looks at, how well you're moving, how is your strength, what are your vital signs. And what we found is that the people who are very sort of interested in now realizing that fitness is about having a body that's ready, not just looking good, have sort of tripped and fell, and they've done what, it's not worked for them. Let me give you an example. We have a good friend, very smart, played college soccer, good athlete. He very, very fit on his Peloton, right? He is like a high-level investment banker. He runs mergers and acquisitions for a gigantic company that everyone's heard of. He falls skiing at the end of the day, a little innocuous fall, tears his ACL, tears his MCL, right? Also tibial plateau fracture, boom, boom, boom. So it turns out that he had been sold this bill of goods. Well, I was an athlete. That's my identity. I'm very fit on this Peloton. So I'm meeting all my demands. And then I'm going to go ski. And what we see is that his lifestyle training didn't prepare his tissues, didn't prepare his nervous system, didn't prepare his, his bones to handle what's happening. And that's a good example of what a lot of us are feeling. And it may not be a catastrophe, but now my shoulder hurts all the time. And now I can't bench and I can't throw. And I'm worried about my elbow hurting. I went and played pickleball and now something hurts. And if you get injured playing pickleball, let me be super clear, everyone, your training sucks. And I don't mean that in like a mean way. I mean like, wow, we really failed you as an industry to prepare you to go play a game with a plastic racket and a wiffle ball. But what we see now is that truth is in the pudding, that we're testing our bodies in these environments. And we need to ask, how well did I do? If we go on a 3-day ski vacation, everyone can do 1 day of killing it. What does the second day look like? What's the third day look like? How jazzed are you to jumping in and not being wrecked for a week, where on the weekends you smash it on 1 day and then literally spend the rest of the week trying to get your act back together? And that's where we need to start to shift some of our thinking about the training we're doing and the kinds of training we're doing, and further expanding the definition of training. So we're going to put what Juliet and I call base camp to one side, which are physical practices that are agnostic about exercise. And this is important because we're trying to create a body that's ready to go when I have opportunity. And that means you need to lay in bed. These are the 8s. We call it 8s plus weights. I need you to lay in bed for 8 hours without looking at your phone. Non-negotiable. And you don't have to sleep for 8 hours because your sleep sucks. And you've been using melatonin and red wine and THC and anything that you can do to sleep. You're on the magnesium. You're biohacking your way to bed sleep, except you're not training. You're on your phone, all the sleep problems that we talk about. But in the very least, I want you to realize that resting is the next best thing to sleeping. So if you're super stressed, right, that's okay. Get into bed. Don't look at your phone for 8 hours. It's off to the side. You're going to set an alarm. Not even allowed to look at what time it is. And if you wake up and you're like, fuck, I'm awake, I just want you to lay there and be like, okay, I'm resting. It's cool. We've got to retrain your sleep. Number 2, Juliet and I are huge fans of this nutrition superstar that we know named E.C. Sinkowski. She has this thing called the 800-gram challenge. And her website, I think, is called 3 Pillars. And the goal is to just eat 800 grams of fruits and vegetables. That's like 4 medium-sized apples every day. 80% of us are not eating enough fruit. 90% of us are not eating any vegetables. So what we're seeing is that we're arguing on the internet about organic fruit, should I get these strawberries? You're not even eating the strawberries. So let's start eating the fruits and vegetables that you're not eating. That you're buying all this stuff at Whole Foods and throwing it away at the end of the week. And I want you to get a scale. And the reason I'm obsessed with this is that you're not getting enough micronutrients and you're definitely not getting enough fiber. You're below on those things. And I can't even talk about what's going on with your process, with your body, with your tissue health, if you don't have any micronutrients on board. You don't have vitamins and minerals. So 800 grams, right? There's familiar here. There's 8s, right? Sleep, lay in bed 8 hours, eat 800 grams. Get a food scale, quit dicking around. And if you don't like kale, cool. You don't have to eat kale. You can eat grapefruits and cherries and peaches. And don't come at me about the sugar. A pound of melon is 230 calories, right? 1 Starbucks cookie, 350 calories. Eat a pound of melon and tell me what's up. You're like, oh, I'm so full from all this melon. I'm so inflamed from the melon. Shut up. Like, quit. Pick up the banana, get the apple, get the orange. Like, just hit those basics. I need you to eat at least 0.8 grams of protein. And as you get older, I need that protein number to go up, probably closer to 1.2. So my struggle, is it
0.8 grams of protein per lean muscle mass or per your body weight?
Per body weight. And I would say ideal body weight, but already we've just sidetracked the conversation. Well, I don't know what my lean muscle mass is. What do you want to weigh? Are you eating that many grams of protein? Yes or no, 1 or 0, punk. And I guarantee you're not. You're skipping breakfast because it was easy and you're biohacking your way. Meanwhile, you missed this huge protein window and your protein signaling comes down as you get older. And you just need more protein. It takes more protein to have the same effect. You have 1 hamburger patty when you're a kid and it works. Now you need like 3, right? So the other thing that I'm trying to do here by making you eat all this protein, like my favorite hack on the internet is walk 10,000 steps, eat 200 grams of protein a day. And literally I'm like, watch what your body does. And I guarantee you, you can't do those things 7 days in a row. You won't, because it's hard and it takes consistency. 10,000 steps, 200 grams of protein. I guarantee you, what's cool about hitting these protein numbers and 800 grams of fruits and veg is that it's so much food that you're going to be stuffed all the time. Remember when I met you and you're like, yeah, all I did was eat lean proteins and fruits and vegetables for a year and I got shredded. You're like, yeah, it works every single time. I mean, welcome to Dean's shred body. Eat fruits and vegetables and protein for a year and watch what happens. So we get calorie control in there, but also remember what I'm obsessed with, your tissue health. So now I'm going to have the healthiest tissues with the most available substrates around. Before you go looking at peptides, make sure you're controlled here, right? Then I don't even think it's 10,000 steps. I think 8,000 steps is a super reasonable number where you get 51% of the benefits of all-cause mortality dropping, all-cause morbidity dropping. 10,000 steps, it goes up to 65. But 8,000 steps, even a busy working human can sneak in 8,000 steps. Got to go for a little walk after lunch, park your car away. Maybe you walk with your family in the evening. Super easy to hit that 8,000. So what we're starting to see suddenly is, hey, I need you to sleep. I need you to go outside. We program in our program, we want you to go outside and play a sport on the weekends. We need 2 40-minute bouts of sport. That sport can be not the gym. I need you to go throw a frisbee, play spike ball, play pickleball, ride a bike, go do an actual sport where you feel athletic. Because it's not just about that. It's about community. It's about sunshine, play pickup basketball. It's about being in weird shapes and decelerating and doing all the things that made us athletic and springy. And so we're not seeing that no one's playing sports anymore. So I need you to go outside and play a sport a couple times a week. That's what the weekend is for. Train your ass off during the week. During the weekend, play. Right? What we're seeing is, for example, the research is the average American is going outside. Listen to this, 20 minutes a week. That's how much time you're getting outside. The rest, and that's hard data. That's straight up hard data from Nature Quant or Nature Dose, which is an app that you can get that tracks how much time you're spending outside. We're trying to get people outside for, 150 minutes a week. And your daily walks are about getting sunshine and fresh air and seeing trees. We just had an expert on our podcast who talks about his whole research is health and environment interaction. And if you're super stressed out as a CEO, killing yourself, if you go for a 90-minute walk, you're not allowed to listen to a podcast, you be in nature, it will completely change your brain. One weekend in the wilderness, reset your brain for like 3 weeks. 90-minute walk will fundamentally change and get you out of that stress pattern. So we need to start thinking and calendaring, when am I doing this stuff, right? So now, guess what? We haven't even talked about training. If you're doing those things, we think you should sit on the ground in the evenings for 20 to 30 minutes, 10-minute man flow yoga routine, 10-minute mobility if you want. But suddenly what's happened is we have built a physical practice where you are controlling for calories, you're taking care of your tissues, you're working on range of motion, you're decongesting your body, you're creating enough non-exercise activity where you're going to fall asleep, you're interacting with your community, you're off the tech, you're going to sleep better and feel better. Then when it's time to go cook, the frying pan is super hot so that we can go smash ourselves in the gym, or we can really take advantage of what's going on. And now training becomes a reason for getting stronger, working on positions, right? Adding skills, not just, hey, I smashed myself, because if I smash myself for 3 hours a week, the rest of the week doesn't matter. Does that make sense? I want to separate those things out. Here's my lifestyle, non-negotiable, base camp. Don't lie to me about this. I can't work with you or even understand what's happening unless you're doing these things. And by the way, it's a system. So if you don't nail each one, it's okay, because you got close on all of them. Then over here, we can have a real conversation about your strength and conditioning.
Awesome. Okay.
And that's what I've been doing for the last 10 years.
Okay. So the thing that stuck out to me was the difference between the second wave and kind of the third wave of fitness, how there's so much information, but nobody knows which information they're supposed to use and apply to their situations. So it becomes like, I could, you could be part of 4 different programs, but you have no idea what you should be doing for your fitness goals. Or like, I like the idea of just asking the question like, hey, what are you training for? What's important to you? And having alignment with what your vision is. And then, okay, well, what all goes into this, which is, I think that's significant. And it sounds like most people just are, okay, I'm doing this and now I'm going to go do sauna. And now I'm going to go, now I'm going to go do this. And I'm like, well, you're not walking. You're not
I'm
eating.
making progress because I'm busy. And you really, if the only goal, let's say I don't have I really am a believer. For me and my wife, it works for us to have something on the calendar we're training for. That could be a mountain bike season. That could be a ski season. That could be a 4-day fantasy helicopter trip in Canada where I decide to drop 10 pounds, lean heavy into my legs, right? My cardio is all time so that I can keep up day after day on skiing. My overhead press went down a little bit. My power clean went down a little bit because I'm training for this thing, right? But if you don't have a thing to train for, we're training for range of motion and tissue health. And I think if it was just about having big muscles, we just give everyone cocaine and steroids and be like, let's do it. Right? It would work. It works every time. It's not enough just to have huge, big, chunky thighs. I need you to have thighs. And by the way, thick thighs save lives. I need you to have thighs and a butt that allows you to cut, sprint, get up and down off the ground, not smoke your low back every time you go into extension, not worry about your knees jumping down from the tailgate. And that's the problem with sort of what our obsession with just naked physiology, the 4x4, what's the skin Nevian model of aerobic VO2 max. I'm like, what do you do with that VO2 max, right? You're just on the Peloton. You never actually run, hike, you don't do anything with that. So we've taken fitness and we've reduced it down to these recursive pills, right? I do more pull-ups so I can do more pull-ups. It's just about like hoarding strength so that someday I can spend it. Wrong approach. We can use those techniques to train our bodies, have the health and fitness and healthy tissues so that we can go kick ass. I can still do the splits. I can still do a backflip. I can still paddle. I can still ski. I can still ride. I can still jump my bike. I want you to have a body that you're like, good to go. You see a trampoline, I'm not worried about it. I don't need to warm up. I mean, that is really what we're trying to do to create a readiness in these tissues that allow us to go be able to play hard and have a body that can handle the hits. So I have huge cuts all over my arm and my knee because on Sunday, my dropper post on my mountain bike, the dropper lever was rotating a little bit. I'd tightened it down, but it was like a bad episode of Final Destination, right? Where literally I'm like pushing it to drop my post and then I reach over and I pull it back and I tighten it down. Meanwhile, we're riding. I'm going fast. The end of the ride, I reach over to push it back instead of reaching under to pull it. And that puts me in a position where I have zero control over my bike. And right then, when you're at big turn, going high speed, I go over the handlebars, take the handlebars to the chest. I'm going fucking fast, grind my head into the ground, bloody knees, bloody elbows. I get up. I'm like, wow. My friends are like, oh my God, you're dead. Are those your teeth? Holy shit. My wife rolls up and like, oh, Kelly's dead. And popped up and I was like, oh, that sucks. I have some scratches. Next day, training again. And I'm not saying that my training prevented that. What I'm saying is that I was durable enough to take that hit because the hits are coming. The falls are coming. The disease is coming. And what I want us to do is have this body that we know is built on the practices that I go into the NFL with. I go into the Premier Rugby or Premier Soccer or university sports programs. I say, here is the foundation. And then if I only get 1 day a week training, I still have this foundation because my tissues are hot. I'm sleeping. My hormones are great. And then if I can get 5 days a week in, super cool. But I have access to my positions. Nothing hurts. And I can take the hit. That is really what we're going for. And then again, we can have another conversation about what I think you should be doing in strength and conditioning. But in the first time, Now we have a body that you have something you can focus on that doesn't feel like I didn't make it to the gym today because my family is busy. I got 17 school activities and 5 little league things and a deadline. So the whole thing is thrown away. And this is what we're doing. Is we're expanding the definition of training to include all these things.
Okay, cool. So one thing that you were talking about was the sports twice a week. It's 40-minute sport. And I played lacrosse in college. I played men's lacrosse pretty much up until the pandemic. And then all the leagues kind of got shut down. And I never got back into it after that. So I must have been like maybe 30 or 31 was the last time I played lacrosse. And you can probably relate to this, but well, no, you can't relate to this because you still like go out there and crush your body and do all the things. But I'm just terrified of, playing lacrosse and getting injured because I have had a lot of injuries in the past. I've had ankle sprains. I had knees. I have had, MCL tear. Like I've had all the things. I'm like, actually why I know a lot about the body is because I've had to fix my body so often. I'm like, oh, I know how to fix that. I know what that feels like.
That's right.
Yeah. So how do you get your body ready for something like that? Is there what's the foundation? What are some universal foundations of physical fitness training? Like everyone asks me should I be doing cardio twice a week? Should I be doing strength training 3 times a week? How do I fit yoga in? What are the things that people, the universal, kind of foundation of training?
Number one of the best ways you can inoculate yourself is to have access to your range of motion. So if people are legitimately doing 10 to 20 minutes of man flow yoga every day, your practice is pretty good. And then you're going to need every once in a while a voodoo band or a ball to just something that's stiff or hurt. But you're touching positions and are in isometric shapes that are crucial, that are required. Imagine you and I are going to engage in a sport, and that sport is eating lunch, right? But my elbows don't bend past 90 degrees. And I have to do all this weird contortion of my neck and my hands to get my hands to my face. And you're like, bro, what are you doing? We're playing lunch. And I'm like, it's fine. Nothing hurts. And you're like, look at how you're eating. Your elbows don't bend. And I'd be like, it's fine, right? I don't need them. I don't need to bend them in day-to-day life. I have these long forks, right? It's super cool. I eat long foods. Like, what are you talking about? You'd be like, you're fucking crazy, Starrett. That's how I view you running right now. You don't even have the range of motion to sprint. You can't put your arms over your head. So let's go ahead and do that at high speed at high force in these crazy situations. I'm sure it'll work out fine. It always works out fine. No, it doesn't. So one of the things you can be doing to inoculate yourself so that you're safe, first and foremost, is to say, let's make sure that we're touching these shapes and positions. Let's give our access to range of motion, and let's give our brains movement choices and solutions so that we don't. Here's an example. There's a direct correlation between how effective your glutes work, how effective your hamstrings work, on how stiff your anterior line is and how stiff your quads are. We have something we invented 1 million years ago called the couch stretch, right? Knee goes up in the corner, right? And what I see is a lot of people can't even get into a high kneel position. They can't get their knee up with the knee in the corner of the wall. You're kind of in a basic exaggerated lunge sprint form. They can't even do that. And they certainly can't breathe in that position. And then I'm like, okay, torso upright, no banana back. Can you even squeeze your butt? You can't even get into that shape. That is a low level bullshit test. That's so low level. The real couch stretch is the front foot is up on a bench and you can squeeze your butt and put your arms over your head and breathe. But what's happening is you've gotten stiff, restricted. Brain doesn't give you permission to access these shapes. Tissues aren't sliding, gliding, whatever. Hip capsule stiff. Doesn't matter. All the things. And so now suddenly when you can't, your knee needs to go behind your butt, running, lunging, sprinting. Your glutes don't work very well. Oh, we just tested that. You can't even squeeze your butt when I put these tissues under load. So now your hamstrings are like, shit, we have to do the hip extension and we have to flex the lower leg. Want to know why? One of the reasons you tear your hamstrings? That's one of the reasons why your hamstrings are always sore. Your hips are so stiff that your butt can't even do its job. So if we now say, okay, let's go sprint, what's going to happen? Your hamstrings are working super hard. Your pelvis is getting yanked over into an anterior tilt. That's a recipe for achy low back. And more importantly, shit outcomes, shit performance. You're going to be slow. You're not going to have movement choice. So one of the things we can do is just make sure that we're keeping an eye on, and again, in the evening, first thing in the morning, when you have some agency. What I'm not telling you to do is not train. What I'm saying is, hey, let's put these little practices at the beginning of the day or the end of the day. And then if we get a chance to go to the gym, let's protect the shit out of that time so we can actually do the fun stuff, the training stuff, the play stuff. But then we're going to do this tissue health, restoration, positional competency drill stuff on either end. I mean, you know me. I know you. If everyone did sun salutation in the morning, what would happen to the population? 10 minutes, sun salutation. I'm too busy. Oh, really? You get up at 6:45, now get up at 6:35. Take a hot shower, 10 minutes of sun salutation. Your mind would be blown at how transformational that is over the course of 2 weeks, 1 week, 3 days. You know what ends up happening is you'll be like, oh, I feel a little bit loose. I feel like I can get into my thing faster. I need less warm up. So number one is I want to protect you by making sure you have access to your range of motion. That means you're not going to trip. You're not going to pull something. Number two, when was the last time you actually sprinted? If I look at your programming, you're going to the gym, you're doing tonal, you're doing your bro split, your 5x5, I follow this guy. You haven't sprinted. You do your cardio, your zone 2. When is the last time you moved your body at speed? So one of the things that I program for every adult, every week we sprint at least one time a week. And that might mean, by the way, I don't think you're ready to sprint on the field yet. You're going to tear something. You'll rip your bones off. You're going to rip your Achilles. But I need you to even touch this energy system. So I'm going to introduce you to the rowing machine, to the Concept 2 bike, right, to an assault bike. And I need you to go so hard in the paint once you're warmed up for 8 to 15 seconds. Find out what your peak wattage is. Then I want you to just chill for 2 minutes, at least 30 seconds. But you're going to need a minute or so to come back from that. 90 seconds, 2 minutes. And when you feel recovered, go again. And when you feel recovered, go again. And chances are you're going to be able to do 6 of those because you haven't touched this. And what's going to see at 6 is that your wattage starts to fall off. What do you think is going to happen when you can't maintain that intensity while we're playing lacrosse, while we're sprinting, while we're running, skiing the bumps in the trees? And so I need you to be able to handle this high intensity load, metabolic load, cardiorespiratory demand load in some kind of domain where you're protected. So the first order of magnitude is, hey, let's make sure that we're touching this energy system in a safe way. The second thing I need you to do is to inoculate yourself is I need you to go out and start throwing that ball around. Pull out your stick. Go throw the ball. Go throw the ball with a friend. Go throw the ball against the wall. Go throw for a half hour, and you're going to see that you're going to have to catch, move, twist, load, right? And you're going to have to chase the ball, and you're going to pick the ball up when you miss, and you're going to start to have this exposure to the root language that you used to do all the time, but we need to come back with that. We can then go and say, hey, let's go find a hill. Let's go be very, very warm. Before you run that hill, we do some of those intervals on that hill. And again, the hill is just a mechanism by which I'm going to control your range of motion. That's all it is. You're just not going to be able to run as fast and as big a range of motion on the hill. So it's a way of protecting meatheads from being meatheads. And I'm staring at the number one meathead in the room. Me. You're number 2. Although, depending on the day, you could be number 1. So one of the things that I want you to do is I want you to walk 800. This is from an elite track and field coach. Walk 800 meters as fast as you can. Walk. And you're going to feel your butt on, your calves. It's not going to take that long, but I need you to walk 800 as fast as you can. Not allowed to run. And then level 2 is every 100 meters, I want you to skip for 100 meters or skip for 50 meters and then walk for 100 meters. Skip 50, skip 100, walk 100. And skipping is going to load that rear leg in extension. It's going to load your calves. Well, you're going to see like, wow, I can't even skip very much. So how, if I can't even skip, which is a position that requires me to have the root language to sprint, and if I'm not even comfortable there and I'm having to adapt my tissues, then what's sprinting going to look like? So now we're starting to do sprint analogs. We're starting to warm up our tissues a little bit, walking more. We're starting to play. We're doing the sport. Then I want you to start running that hill, but we're not going to do it from a dead start. We're going to start to run, and then we're going to accelerate a little bit. And the second your power comes down, because this is what we're training for, is power, not cardio. If I say we're going to run 100 hills, everyone's going to do 100 hills. We're going to suck. It's going to be slow. But I'm interested in this power aspect and the loading of the tissues. Your tissues aren't tissues until they can handle speed and speed load. Let me be very clear about that. One of the problems that we've all traps we've all fallen into is that we're like, hey, I'm doing my stiff-legged good mornings with the single leg. What happened? Well, I'm like, well, that was slow as shit. And no wonder when you went fast, your tissues couldn't handle it. Remember that acceleration vector, right? Mass times acceleration, the acceleration squared. So the forces, right, are huge when we start adding impulse, speed, velocity, right? That's the killer on the body. We can do anything slow. And one of my favorite coaches, Franz Bosch, you got me fired up. Franz Bosch says there's more variation in waltzing than there is in sprinting, which means at low loads and low speeds, it doesn't matter as much. Your tissues can buffer it. You can round your back when you deadlift. But I'll tell you, at high loads, high speeds, whoop, we start to see that the humans all start to function the same way. We look the same way. Your femur's longer, my torso's longer, whatever, but the principles remain the same. And we start to see that there's a lot less variation. And that's why also that we also say your tissues aren't ready to go until we can do it fast. And this is why you're not, if I look at your strength training, at some point, I need you to get off the deadlift bar and onto the kettlebell. Why? The high speed, negative loads on the hamstrings and the hips are so much more innocuous, they will inoculate you for safety against hamstring strains much more than that deadlift will, because that, you're not doing a good eccentric, and your certainly eccentric isn't fast. So that kettlebell for me is one of the ways that I keep your back and hips and hamstrings super healthy. Because what I'm really trying to do there is not argue about which exercise is better. It's like, hey, everything you do is slow. So what do you think was going to happen? When you move fast, and what do you mean you tore your biceps hitting a wiffle ball on the pickleball court? I hear that all the time. I'm like, dude, what were you doing? Everyone on this call, I need you to go get a rope. I need you to start doing the David Weck rope flow. Rope flow is my favorite way to warm up. And it's one of the easiest ways to add speed training of your torso, side bending, flexion. Again, here's my diss on yoga, done slowly. You can't forward fold at high speed. You just can't. It's not what it was intended for. Right? It's a restorative practice, isometrics, like the same way. So
you could jump off a staircase and forward fold very, very quickly.
Right. So the idea here is, I'm looking for ways where I can have multiple bang for the buck. I jump rope every single day, but I jump it with a length of rope. You can get a 1/2-inch piece of rope on Amazon, a 3/4-inch piece of rope. You don't have to buy some special rope. There are so many great protocols and examples of rope flow. And look, you don't have to do rope flow like it's your identity. So you can go to Burning Man. So you stop doing sport and you just flow with the rope and park. Like if I ever see you do that, I'm going to kill you. But this thing where I swing a heavy rope around, man, it asks me to side bend, asks me to forward flex, asks me to extend, asks me to rotate. All the shapes that I'm doing in my movement practice, right? My mobility, my yoga. But now I'm adding it with speed. And with the shoulders, arms straight, arms bent, I'm getting thousands of rotations. I'm getting tons of weird movement patterns and directions. And what you'll see is you're like, holy shit, now my tissues are starting to be exposed to this speed. I can do something than that for 5 minutes. Now my bench feels better. My snatch feels better. And I'm starting to expose myself to shapes and positions that are required for sport. And now we're starting to build the tools that start to look like, how do I protect myself so that I can go have a body built for adventure, right? And you send me your programming, all I'm going to look for is deficits. Where are you not rotating? Or you're not flexing, extending. Where's the speed? How come you didn't touch this shit? You haven't lunged or done a rear foot elevated split squat in 100 days. So no wonder you suck at these things, right? So, and it's not your fault. It's difficult for us to sort of imagine what a modern strength conditioning program looks like. And I had the same conversation with our elite heavyweight Olympic lifters who don't spend any time in hip extension and their knees hurt. So we have to put them in hip extension and then their knees don't hurt.
So what I'm hearing is people need to be less afraid of intensity, of high intensity, but also that they have to, or moving fast with intensity, but they have to also appropriately scale up, right? So you talked about walking fast instead of sprinting fast. It also sounds like people are doing way too much just strength training, just like, going to the gym, doing 5x5 or like without, sprints, without getting outside and moving.
That's right. I need you to go spend those fitness credits, right? I love squatting, but I'd rather you spend the next, if you just Olympic lifted with a sandbag, I think you're going to have a better outcome. And again, if the goal is just to have big quads, we know how to do that. And we'll just do blood flow restriction and leg sled. And then we've solved all your problems, right? You have huge quads. You look good naked. What's that? I forget the actor, but he's swimming recently. He played in Twisters and he was in Top Gun. And anyway, he's jacked.
Oh, yes.
And I hate that guy because he's apparently a super nice guy and he's super shredded. But he's out there swimming with a girl and he's like, I'm not very fit. And she's like, dude, you're hot girl fit. You don't have any cardio. He's like, yeah, cardio, right? And what I don't want you to be is hot girl fit. I don't want you to be hot girl fit. I want you to be, and I think you can be all of these things. But notice where I started was in calorie control, micronutrient density, which is how we're going to change your body composition. That's how we change your body composition. This training, I want to be about outcome, not aesthetics. And that's where we've lost our minds. I'm squatting so that I can be powerful and have a butt that works and do all these things. I'm not squatting so that I look better naked. Does that make sense? If you want to look better naked, you're going to eat 200 grams of protein and walk 10,000 steps a day. That's going to change your life. That's going to change your body composition. Over here, we're training to have a body that is legit well into your 60s and 70s. And look, I have friends like Laird Hamilton, who is 61, and that mofo is so badass, fit, can do with everything. Try to keep up with that 61-year-old. You cannot. And the reason is that he works on his positions. He has a huge aerobic set. He's strong. He works in the ranges he can control, and then he goes out and plays and plays and plays. So we don't have that flexibility, but we don't need that kind of life flexibility that he has as a professional big wave surfer. We can take those lessons and say, hey, let's do that and drop that into the schedule of a very busy person who's old right now. When I'm 52 in September, I'm probably coming up near the peak of my powers. I'm on a lifestyle board at Stanford. I get to work with the best teams. Like I'm finally good at my job. Finally, I finally have enough experience to be worth a shit. And now I have the least amount of time. So how am I going to manage that? And that's all of us on this call, where we're killing ourselves to provide for our families, provide for ourselves, take care of our elderly parents, all those things. Yeah. And I think we can do these other things. We just have to be a lot more disciplined and then get a pattern. Those base camp things, those things just run in the background, and they run in the background for months and months and months and months. And then what you'll see is that's enough, plus some smart striking conditioning, you're going to be flying.
But in terms of prioritizing things, base camp, it sounds like the base camp has to be first. So is that where energy should be directed to if you're struggling with these things, or
both things simultaneously? You can train, but what I'm saying is you're working real hard. If you and I'm doing base camp, you're doing base camp, I'm not doing base camp. We both eat an apple. You are getting 100% of the benefit of the apple. I'm getting a bite benefit of the apple. We both eat the apple. That's what's happening in your training, right? So you're doing all of these things. Your body will adapt really well. I'm not doing any of those things. My body does not adapt to the same stimulus. So there's a thing that we work on and talk about in professional sports. We call it session cost. And the idea is, there used to be an idea that you could outwork the competition. I'll just outwork the competition, the grind, right? And I'll just get in there and outgrind them. You can't outgrind anybody anymore. Everyone's working at their limits. Like, what? You think Stanford is outgrinding Cal, outgrinding USC? Right. It's Michigan outgrinding Ohio State. That's bullshit. It's not happening. Everyone's working very hard. But if I handle my business, I pay less of a cost on my nervous system, on my tissues, on my readiness, and I can adapt better to the same volume of training. So that means over time, I start to make much better gains because my adaptation to the strength and conditioning, to the lifestyle, to the stress is much better. And I have more tolerance when something goes wrong because you're going to get a cold. You're going to get sick. You know, I got the sickest I've ever been this year, and I lost some weight, and I was like, oh my God, like what happens if I don't have weight to lose? You know, so what I'm trying to say is the things I'm describing isn't about playing defense. It's about playing offense. And offenses means I have a body that is ready to go. I adapt to the training really well. And then when something comes my way where I just can't work out this week, it's not a lost week because I'm doing all of these things that are a physical practice. And that when it's time to train again, I can jump right back in.
Cool. All right. So that makes sense. So the base camp is also makes the workouts that you do more efficient. If you're not doing the base camp, you're only getting so much out of the workouts.
That's right. And, you know, and remember, evidence-based, this is all based on clinical data. It's all based on, you know, scientific evidence. And, you know, what we know is if you are having a blood panel and you're pre-diabetic, this is how we solve it. If your bone density is not where you want, this is how we solve it. If, you know, I'll give you an example. And it's lucky. I own a gym. I'm a physio. I'm obsessed with this stuff. This is how I'm not in jail or addicted to drugs and a life of crime because I exercise, right? I love this stuff. I crashed on my skis in 2013, 2014, going real fast. And I just booted up. I was on some detuned slalom skis. I was going real fast, doing something stupid, racing a stranger. And the ski caught, and I felt a little bad pinch in my knee. And I was like, ooh, sprained my knee. That's a bummer. I stood up. My wife came down. She's like, oh, you're covered in snow. Did you crash? I was like, yeah, I just crashed. But I think I sprained my knee. I need to ski down. So I skied down. My knee stayed swollen for about a month. I managed it. I did everything I could. I drained it. Right. I went and finally got a picture. And I had 2 gigantic compression fractures in the surfaces of my knee. My femur and my tibia basically had impacted so hard, put my femur into my tibia, and I had what are called kissing bone lesions. And those bone lesions were swelling and pissy, and I just went right through the surfaces. Didn't fracture my tibial plateau, didn't tear my ACL, but so much energy that I crushed these 2 surfaces. And I managed it for a real long time. And finally, I had to get my knee replaced about 5 years ago. And when I went in there and they did it, they had to use 3 saw blades to cut my femur. The first saw blade became dull and started burning the bone. So they didn't know what to do. There's a resin in there. So the senior attending is like, oh, get another saw blade. Again, the saw blade became dull on my bone. 3rd saw blade finally got through. And I'm not even a mutant. I'm not special. I just had been real good at getting micronutrients, doing some dynamic movement for a long time, and my body had adapted. And my point is, I had a crash in an accident. It's my fault, but I minimized the trauma. I didn't destroy my knee. I could have destroyed my knee. I mean, I skied down. And then when I had the surgery, I still had my range of motion. I had my muscle mass. I didn't lose any of that because, again, the injury is coming. And if we're going to have bodies that we love and we can do things with our bodies that we care about, it's not yoga for the rest of our lives. It wrapped in bubble tape, eating, vegetables and brown rice. It's I do the things that allow me to keep my body ready to go so I can crush it and bounce back. And that's really what this story is about. Trying to be able to do that for as long as we want.
Okay. Cool. Well, I can't add anything to make that any better. And I think that's a great stopping point.
It's super important. And if you're here and listening to Dean, you're already doing a ton because you've got a breath practice. You're touching shapes and you're moving. You're thinking about recovery and restoration. All the things that are always thrown off. And now we don't have to throw any of that away. We modify it by just stacking one more behavior and stacking one more behavior. And pretty soon what we see is this is really manageable amount of input into my body. I can do this sustainably for decades. And that is the game. The long game is the game.
Yeah. And that's what we hear about most in our community is people, yes, like looking great would be awesome if that's what happens, but people just want to be able to have the agency to choose what they do and don't do. And even more than that, looking at the people in their life who don't have that ability and who don't even have the ability to live independently. They look at that. They're like, I don't want that to be me. So I'm going to start doing this fitness thing because I don't want that to happen.
Tonight, sit on the ground for 20 or 30 minutes while watching TV. We just wrapped up Andor. It's the greatest television show in the history of the world. If you're not into Star Wars, we don't have to be. Watch season 1, watch Rogue One. Then watch season 1, then I don't even have a reason to live anymore because Andor is over. But to watch an Andor on the ground is where I work on all my hip stuff. I'm getting all of this time in long sit and 90-90 and kneeling and squatting. And in the background, I'm working on my positions and shapes, which makes it a lot easier for me to do the things I want to do with my body. And look, the one thing you don't have to change is you really don't have to sacrifice your tissue health. You can really work hard on that, but your range of motion, which is part of that conversation of tissue health, you can hold on to your range of motion your whole life.
Yeah, those 90-90s, I love hanging out in 90-90s on the ground. It just works well for me. So I do it a lot. And guess what?
Don't do that shit at the gym. That's not a gym activity. That's I'm at home playing with my kid activity. Do you know what I mean? At the gym, I want to be banging weights and swinging kettlebells and doing rad shit. I'm still I'm back on my quest to power clean 225 every 30 seconds for 20 minutes, right? That's what I'm chasing right now is capacity, not 90-90s in the gym. That's, again, watch Andor, do 90-90s.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Well, just in the interest of keeping this in the new time confines of this season, I'm going to call it here. I'm sure you could go all day. I love listening to you. It's super helpful. I got a lot of stuff out of this. Like one thing, for example, like kettlebells being good for explosive fitness. I hadn't thought of that. I hadn't thought of that as like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But like just subbing kettlebells for barbell training or dumbbell training. Oh. So it's an easy fix. Easy fix.
And if you're like, it's not heavy enough, just catch 100-pound kettlebell flying down. Let me know how it goes.
Okay. Yeah. Make sure you have health insurance. If possible.
You can travel. We're going up to a friend's ranch up in the mountains this weekend, and we're gonna ride mountain bikes and paddle. But I'm bringing kettlebells. Because I'm gonna get 20 minutes of training in there because it's the weekend. When I'm on vacation, it means I get to do 2 sports a day. That's what it means. I get to do a sport and train for a sport. I mean, that's I pack it in. Yeah,
love it. Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on, sharing your wisdom, your experience, your knowledge. I think you're still the most popular episode we've had on the show.
Oh man. Dean,
your name means something.
They don't recognize, because everyone's so comfortable with you in this group, just how important your work is and how you just Sanskrited a really important practice for us and made it so valuable. And I know you're 10x more than just yoga. It's like saying I'm just mobility. It's just like, what is that? You know what I mean? But I just want to reiterate that if you're in this community doing Dean's work, you're so far ahead of everyone else.
Thank you. That means a lot. I appreciate it. Well, I hope we can chat more. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode.
On the old lacrosse court. I'm going to fuck you up, man.
I'm pretty fast, man. I think I could just outrun that.
I was just kidding. That's why they have to give the defenders a long stick. You can't catch you guys.
True. I tried sprinting last week and I didn't fall apart. So that was exciting. I hadn't sprinted in years. So I'm doing something right.
Go to a local track and field, even take your shoes off, be on the turf, just some like acceleration. So don't even sprint. I'm jogging a little bit between the 40-yard dash lines. I'm going to accelerate and then I'm just going to jog and then walk. Then turn around and just start to jog and then accelerate and then jog. That's sprinting. That's sprint training for the old people.
Okay. All right. I'm in. I'm down. I'm inspired. I'm doing it this weekend. All right, man. Thanks again. I'll put all your links and everything. Thank you so much for being here. Becoming a Supple Leopard is just a Bible of a mobility book. Everyone should have it. And I also have to mention Yoga for Athletes, which has a great foreword from the Dr. Kelly Starrett in it. And you should get that too. All right, guys. Hope this inspires you to say that one more time. Sorry.
Get Yoga for Athletes.
Thank you. All right, guys. I hope this inspires you to be a better man. I'll see you guys in the next episode. All right, guys, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed that. If you want to learn more about Dr. Kelly Starrett, his books, the Ready State, anything that he does, you could just Google him and a ton of stuff will come up. But we're also going to put his links in the show notes here. So definitely check that out. If you're enjoying this podcast, I encourage you to leave a review. If you have already left a review, thank you so much. If you're part of the Manful Yoga community here listening in, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope this pairs well with, what you're already getting out of the Manful Yoga app and members area. And if you're not already there, I encourage you to sign up and try a free 7-day trial. You can learn more at manfulyoga.com/join. Links in the show notes. If you're not quite ready to do that, I do have a free 7-day program called the 7-Day Beginners Yoga for Men Challenge. Don't let the word challenge scare you. It's just a word for a 7-day program. You can learn more about that at manfulyoga.com/7DC. Guys, thanks so much for listening. Again, Dr. Kelly Starrett is amazing. I hope you enjoyed this interview. I hope it inspires you to be a better man. I will see you on the next episode.